Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. That's not a family heirloom. That's just junk you can't afford. Words that shattered the silence of Christie's auction house. The young man in his worn blazer froze, color draining from his face as wealthy patrons turned to stare. Behind them, in the shadowed back row, Robert Downey Jr. lowered his auction paddle, his eyes narrowing slightly. The student clutched a faded photograph, knuckles white as the well-dressed collector continued loudly, champagne glass dangling between manicured fingers. Overhead, crystal chandeliers cast cold light across marble floors where two worlds collided: old money privilege and desperate determination. Muffled laughter rippled through the room as the auctioneer hesitated, gavel suspended in uncomfortable recognition of power's ugly display. What started as a quiet Thursday evening auction had transformed into public theater. The young man's shoulders tensed beneath his second-hand jacket, eyes fixed on item number 42, a modest vintage ring with immeasurable personal value. The collector's smile widened, sensing easy victory as he raised his paddle again. He couldn't possibly have known that tonight, the definition of value itself would be dramatically rewritten, or that sometimes true worth arrives in unexpected forms. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. The auctioneer cleared his throat, uncomfortable silence clinging to the room like expensive perfume. Continuing with lot number 42, vintage sapphire ring, circa 1940. Opening bid at $5,000. His voice echoed against marble walls adorned with priceless paintings that had witnessed centuries of wealth changing hands. Michael Thompson, 23 and drowning in student debt, raised his paddle with a trembling hand. This was it, his one shot at reclaiming the last piece of his grandmother's legacy. $5,000 from the young gentleman, acknowledged the auctioneer with practiced neutrality. The photograph in Michael's other hand showed his grandmother wearing that very ring on her wedding day, her smile radiating the kind of joy money couldn't purchase. 3 jobs, countless overtime shifts, and selling his car had barely gotten him to the minimum bid. Faces turned, eyebrows raised at the out-of-place young man in scuffed shoes and department store blazer, an anomaly among Armani suits and designer dresses. $7,000, came the smooth counter from Ellis Blackwood, real estate magnate and notorious collector. He didn't bother looking at Michael, instead swirling his champagne with manicured fingernails that had never known manual labor. To him, this was merely Tuesday entertainment, another trinket to display and forget. $8,000, Michael countered, voice steadier than his racing heart. Nearby, a woman in diamonds worth more than his annual rent whispered loudly to her companion, making no effort to hide her amusement. "How quaint," she remarked, opera gloves failing to muffle her derision. Michael kept his eyes forward, dignity his only armor against their laughter. His entire bank account would be emptied with this bid, but some things transcended financial value. $10,000, Blackwood announced casually, finally turning to acknowledge Michael with a predatory smile. "Though I'm curious why you'd waste everyone's time when you clearly can't compete." Several phones rose around the room. Social media vultures sensing viral content in the making. Privileged entertainment at the expense of someone else's devastation. The young man's face burned as he lowered his paddle, mathematical reality crushing emotional determination. His grandmother had worn that ring every day until cancer claimed her last breath, her final wish being that it stay in the family. $10,000 going once, the auctioneer announced, ritual continuing despite the ugly undercurrent. Blackwood leaned toward his companion, loudly enough to ensure Michael would hear, "People should know their place. That's not a family heirloom, that's just junk you can't afford." The words sliced through the room, cruelty masquerading as casual observation. In the back, Robert Downey Jr. shifted in his seat, the movement subtle but deliberate. Michael's fingers tightened around his grandmother's photograph, its edges worn from years of being carried close to his heart. Memories flooded back, her hands baking cookies despite arthritis pain, stories told beside hospital beds, the ring glinting as she promised him it would someday be his. "She wore it through 63 years of marriage," he whispered, words meant for himself yet carrying in the hushed room. A few glances softened, humanity briefly piercing the veneer of exclusivity that coated the auction house walls. 10,000 going twice," continued the auctioneer, professional detachment masking any personal feelings about the scene unfolding before him. Blackwood's smile widened, victory assured as Michael stood frozen, mathematics and emotion waging impossible war within him. The collector already mentally placed the ring in his display case, another conquest with no meaning beyond ownership itself. Several guests shifted uncomfortably, caught between social allegiance and unexpected conscience. "I have $10,000 from Mr. Blackwood." The auctioneer raised his gavel, the sound of wood striking wood about to seal Michael's defeat. "Last call." The young man closed his eyes briefly, his grandmother's voice echoing in memory. "Remember, Mickey, true value isn't in what something costs, but in what it means." As the gavel began its final descent, a voice from the back of the room cut through the tension like a perfectly timed line in a blockbuster film. $50,000. Heads turned in unison toward Robert Downey Jr., who now stood, auction paddle raised high. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. The room transformed instantly, electricity charging the air as recognition rippled through the crowd. Robert Downey Jr., not just a celebrity but a cultural icon, stood casually in a tailored navy suit, his presence suddenly dominating the space. Phones previously capturing Michael's humiliation now swiveled toward the star, social media narratives rewriting themselves in real time. The auctioneer, momentarily stunned, found his professional voice. "50,000 from Mr. Downey. Do I hear 55? Blackwood's expression soured, champagne glass lowering as calculation replaced confidence. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about status and saving face. 60,000? He countered sharply, straightening his posture as cameras focused on this unexpected drama. The audience murmured excitedly, tonight's event suddenly worth the mandatory donations that had secured their invitations. Michael remained motionless, caught in emotional undertow as his grandmother's ring became the centerpiece of a power play he never intended. 75,000, Downey responded without hesitation, his voice carrying the same confident charisma that had resurrected his career and made Iron Man a cultural phenomenon. He moved forward through the crowd, which parted instinctively around him. Unlike Blackwood's aggressive posturing, Downey's approach held relaxed authority, the difference between someone performing importance and someone comfortable in their skin. Michael watched in disbelief as the actor stopped beside him, offering a subtle nod of acknowledgement that felt like a lifeline in turbulent waters. Blackwood's jaw tightened visibly, wounded ego demanding response. $100,000, he announced loudly, eyes challenging Downey directly now. The bid exceeded the ring's objective value tenfold, transforming auction into arena. Those recording couldn't have scripted better entertainment. Wealth battling wealth while ordinary life hung in the balance. The woman who had mocked Michael earlier now watched him with newfound interest. social calculations shifting as celebrity proximity transformed his narrative from pathetic to potentially valuable. 200,000, Downey countered with deceptive casualness, never breaking eye contact with Blackwood. The room collectively gasped, theater of wealth escalating beyond expectation. Michael's photograph trembled in his hand, Grandma Evelyn's face watching as her modest ring became central to a battle between titans. The auctioneer's professional demeanor cracked slightly, excitement bleeding through as he repeated the unprecedented bid amount. Blackwood's face flushed crimson beneath designer stubble, public challenge activating something primal behind his cultivated facade. "This is absurd," he hissed, turning to address the room as though seeking allies. "It's a worthless piece of costume jewelry. $250,000. The declaration landed with the subtlety of a gauntlet thrown. Several onlookers exchanged glances. This had transcended auction into something raw and personal. The ring itself became almost irrelevant, merely vehicle for masculine competition. "Seems pretty valuable to me," Downey remarked calmly, eyes briefly meeting Michael's. In that fleeting connection, understanding passed between them. One man who had lost everything to addiction before rebuilding his life, recognizing another fighting desperately not to lose what mattered most. $500,000, he stated clearly, words dropping like perfectly timed dialogue in an action sequence where the underdog finally gains upper hand. A collective intake of breath swept through Christie's hallowed halls, social media posts updating frantically. Michael stood speechless, emotional vertigo threatening to overwhelm him. His grandmother's ring, purchased by his grandfather on factory workers' wages in 1940, now commanded more than his student debt, future earnings, and childhood home combined. Through the emotional fog, he noticed something curious. Downey showed no triumph, no performative charity in his stance. Instead, his expression held something Michael recognized from his grandmother's final days: quiet dignity facing overwhelming odds. Blackwood, meanwhile, gripped his paddle with whitening knuckles, wealth being his only identity now publicly challenged. $750,000, Blackwood snapped, volume rising with desperation. The performance aspect had evaporated entirely, revealing naked ego beneath. His companion touched his arm in warning, sensing dangerous territory, but he shook her off forcefully. The crowd grew uncomfortable, entertainment souring as they witnessed unraveling rather than confidence. "I always get what I want," he added unnecessarily, statement hanging awkwardly in refined air. Downey's response came not as another bid, but a question, delivered with the timing of an actor who understood the power of audience. "Why do you want it?" Simplicity cut through pretense, exposing the hollow core of Blackwood's pursuit. The collector blinked, momentarily confused by script deviation. "Because it's," he began automatically before faltering. The room leaned forward collectively, awaiting justification that could transform naked greed into something noble. None came. $1 million, Downey stated definitively, not as challenge, but conclusion. Even the auctioneer seemed momentarily stunned, protocol temporarily forgotten in the face of unprecedented escalation. Downey turned slightly, addressing Michael directly for the first time. This gentleman was willing to spend everything he had. "I'm curious what makes this particular ring so valuable to you." The question wasn't performative charity, but genuine interest. A moment of human connection amidst surreal financial battle. Michael swallowed hard, finding himself center stage in Christie's auction house with Robert Downey Jr. awaiting his response, while hundreds of phones recorded his every word. He held up his grandmother's photograph with surprising steadiness. "She raised me after my parents died. Worked 2 jobs, never complained. Cancer took her 3 months ago." His voice grew stronger with each word. "Her last wish was that I'd have her ring, not to sell, but to remember that love outlasts everything." Simple truth resonated through artifice-filled room, briefly silencing even the most cynical observers. The auctioneer cleared his throat, reclaiming procedural control. "I have $1 million from Mr. Downey. Going once. Blackwood stood frozen, trapped between financial absurdity and ego's demands. "Going twice." The room collectively held its breath. Blackwood opened his mouth, closed it, then threw down his paddle in dramatic surrender. "Sold for $1 million, the auctioneer declared, gavel striking with finality that echoed through suddenly silent hall. This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk. Applause erupted spontaneously, emotional release after breathless tension. Not polite auction house appreciation, but genuine, cathartic celebration. Witnesses to unexpected justice in a world where money typically dictated outcomes. Michael stood motionless, reality struggling to penetrate emotional barricade as Blackwood stormed toward the exit, companion trailing apologetically behind. The collector's retreat became background action as all attention focused on the remaining protagonists of this unfolding drama. "Shall we complete the paperwork, Mr. Downey?" the auctioneer inquired, gesturing toward private offices where seven-figure transactions were finalized. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Michael's features, gratitude warring with pride as implications settled. Had he simply traded one wealthy owner for another? The ring would still remain beyond his reach. Grandmother's wish technically unfulfilled despite spectacular intervention. His expression must have revealed these thoughts because Downey's response came as if reading script inside Michael's mind. "Actually," Downey replied, "the paperwork should list this gentleman as owner." He gestured toward Michael with respectful casualness that acknowledged him as equal rather than charity case. "I'm just covering the bill." The statement, delivered without performative magnanimity, rippled through onlookers. Phones captured furiously, influencers already crafting narratives around unexpected generosity. Michael's mouth opened, but words failed. Emotional system overloaded by impossible pivot from defeat to victory. The auctioneer hesitated, protocol temporarily scrambled by unprecedented arrangement. "That's highly unusual, sir. Perhaps we could—" Downey raised his hand slightly, the gesture gentle but carrying undeniable authority developed through decades navigating Hollywood's power structures. "I find unusual solutions often yield the most satisfying results," he remarked with characteristic wry delivery. "Trust me, I've had some experience with unconventional approaches to life." Self-referential humor regarding his well-documented personal struggles landed perfectly, celebrity leveraging his narrative to diffuse tension. Through suspended disbelief, Michael found his voice. "I can't accept," he began, pride wrestling gratitude. $1 million exceeded rational acceptance, threatening to transform meaningful gesture into uncomfortable obligation. Downey turned fully toward him now, cameras temporarily forgotten as genuine connection formed between them. "Consider it an investment," Downey said quietly, voice lowered though every strain remained audible in room hanging on each word. "Not in jewelry, in what it represents." He glanced at the photograph in Michael's hand, silent acknowledgement of what transcended monetary value. Some people collect things hoping value will transfer to them somehow. His eyes briefly tracked toward doorway where Blackwood had exited. "I found actual value usually works in opposite direction. We give meaning to objects, not the other way around." Michael's academic mind registered philosophical depth beneath casual delivery. Downey speaking not as celebrity but as human who had navigated profound loss and redemption. Your grandmother clearly understood that, the actor continued. Would have been worth every penny just to see that guy's face when he realized some things can't be bought. Humor diffused tension without diminishing moments' significance. Around them, Christie's elegant auction floor had transformed. No longer marketplace for exclusive luxury, but stage for unexpected humanity. Mr. Downey and Mr. The auctioneer prompted, practical reality reasserting itself amid emotional currents. Thompson. Michael Thompson, he managed. Name unfamiliar even to himself in these surroundings. If you'll both follow me to complete the transaction, the auctioneer continued, gesturing toward offices where papers awaited signatures. As they moved through parting crowd, whispers trailed behind them, narrative already reconstructing itself through social media alchemy. Michael Thompson transformed from pitiful outsider to protagonist in developing story. People who had ignored or mocked him minutes earlier now angled for proximity, social value instantly recalculated. Inside private office reserved for high-value transactions, reality temporarily stabilized. Away from performing crowd, Downey's demeanor shifted subtly, still confident but more contemplative. As financial details were processed through exclusive channels where million-dollar impulse purchases became routine paperwork, he studied Michael with genuine interest. "Engineering student?" he asked, noticing complex equation sketched on notebook edge visible in Michael's jacket pocket. The question wasn't celebrity small talk, but authentic curiosity, trait that had helped rebuild his career through human connection rather than manufactured charm. "Mechanical engineering, yes," Michael confirmed, surprised at personal question amid surreal financial transaction. "Final year at MIT, working nights to cover what scholarships don't." Self-consciousness returned briefly. Reality of students struggling through education against economic tide suddenly stark against million-dollar backdrop. Auction house staff processed paperwork with practiced efficiency. Seven-figure transfer handled with same procedural routine as parking validation. "MIT, impressive." Downey nodded recognition without condescension. "Building something interesting?" The question carried genuine interest that transcended polite conversation. Something in his tone invited truth rather than performance, rare quality in environments built around impression management. As administrative details continued around them, unexpected authentic exchange developed between unlikely auction house companions. "Actually, yes," Michael's voice gained confidence discussing familiar territory. "Designing prosthetic limbs that grow with children. Problem is, current models require constant replacement as kids develop. Costs families thousands they don't have. Passion temporarily overshadowed surroundings, genuine purpose emerging beneath circumstantial drama. My grandmother funded first prototype selling her wedding china. Couldn't bear seeing families choose between mortgage payments and kids walking." Understanding registered in Downey's expression, recognition beyond celebrity encountering inspirational story. "Your grandmother sounds like someone worth remembering," he said simply, words carrying weight of personal experience with transformation and purpose-finding. Financial manager appeared with final documents, mechanical process continuing alongside human connection developing between them. "Imagine that's why the ring mattered so much." Not question, but acknowledgement. Michael nodded, throat tightening as ring finally appeared in velvet box, modest sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds, more heirloom than luxury. Placed between million-dollar paperwork and fountain pens worth more than his monthly rent, its physical presence seemed almost anticlimactic. Yet, as Michael carefully lifted it, significance expanded beyond carat weight or market value. Grandmother's hands cradling his childhood fears, supporting his dreams, fighting illness while insisting he continue studies. She wore this through 63 years of marriage, raising 2 generations, beating cancer twice before it finally won, Michael said quietly. Said real wealth was outlasting hard times together. He examined delicate engraving inside band. Love endures all things, words that had shaped his understanding of commitment. Guess you just helped her prove that point pretty dramatically. Unexpected moment of levity broke emotional heaviness. Genuine smile forming as absurdity of million-dollar auction battle for modest family ring fully registered. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Outside Christie's elegant glass doors, reality reasserted itself through evening Manhattan traffic and pedestrians unaware of drama that had unfolded within. Michael and Downey emerged to flashbulbs and gathered onlookers. News of unexpected auction events spreading through social media with viral velocity. Blackwood's sleek Bentley pulled away aggressively from the curb, final visual punctuation to earlier confrontation. Michael clutched a small bag containing ring box, tangible victory still feeling dreamlike against city backdrop. About repayment, Michael began awkwardly, responsibility weighing against gratitude. The sum involved exceeded rational framework, student loans, future salary, and entire professional trajectory combined couldn't approach million-dollar acknowledgement. Downey shook his head slightly, stopping impossible conversation before it fully formed. "There's a foundation I work with," he explained, casual tone belying significant implication. "We fund engineering innovations with social impact." Understanding dawned gradually across Michael's features as words registered. "Your prosthetics project sounds exactly like what we look for. Send the proposal to this email." He handed over business card with handwritten address. Simple gesture transforming bizarre auction encounter into potential collaboration with meaningful purpose. "That's not charity," Downey continued, anticipating unspoken concern with characteristic perceptiveness. "It's investment in something valuable, like your grandmother did." Parallel drawn without sentimentality but genuine recognition. Around them, phones captured interaction for social media narratives neither could control, yet authentic connection transcended performance aspects of unexpected public moment. Guessing she'd appreciate seeing her ring help launch something that matters. Michael's fingers closed around business card, possibility emerging through emotional fog. Not charity, but partnership. Distinction that preserved dignity while acknowledging extraordinary circumstance. "She would," he confirmed, emotion momentarily thickening voice. "Engineering was her idea originally. Said I had hands that could build things worth having." Memory shared not as performance for gathered audience, but genuine connection between two people recognizing value beyond financial metrics. Downey's driver appeared with understated efficiency, luxury vehicle positioning alongside curb without ostentation that characterized Blackwood's earlier departure. Final moment approached, transition from extraordinary encounter back toward separate lives. "Worth remembering something, Michael," Downey said, characteristic thoughtfulness emerging behind casual demeanor. "That collector didn't want your grandmother's ring because it was valuable. He wanted it because you did." Observation delivered without judgment but clear-eyed recognition of human behavior. Some people measure themselves by taking what others want. Several onlookers had gathered closer, phones recording interaction destined for viral sharing. Their presence registered peripherally, but couldn't diminish authentic exchange occurring within public sphere. "Never been motivated by spite," Downey continued with subtle self-deprecation, "but must admit, seeing his face when he realized some things aren't for sale? Priceless." Humor landed perfectly, breaking tension without diminishing moment's significance. "What happens now?" Michael asked, question encompassing evening's extraordinary pivot and broader uncertainty beyond. The ring secured, relationship established, next steps remained undefined in aftermath of unexpected intervention. Michael stood at threshold between previous life constraints and undefined possibilities. Familiar undergraduate struggles transformed by unlikely auction house encounter. You finish your degree, build those prosthetics, make your grandmother proud, Downey answered simply. Not Hollywood ending, but authentic acknowledgement of work remaining beyond dramatic moment. And maybe remember something she clearly understood. Real value isn't in what things cost. He gestured briefly toward Christie's, where other auctions continued unabated, luxury commodities changing hands among privileged few. It's in what they mean. As Downey prepared to depart, Michael impulsively extended hand-holding grandmother's photograph. Would you like to see her? Offer made not from starstruck impulse but genuine desire to share essential context, the woman whose values had triggered evening's extraordinary events. Downey accepted photograph with careful reverence it deserved, studying image of elderly woman whose modest ring had temporarily transformed auction house dynamics. She has kind eyes, Downey observed quietly, recognition beyond polite acknowledgement. My kind of hero. Statement delivered without performative sentiment but genuine appreciation that transcended social barriers. He returned photograph with careful respect, honoring its significance rather than monetary value. $10 says she'd be more impressed by those prosthetics you're designing than any million-dollar auction drama. Michael nodded, unexpected truth landing precisely. She'd have thought this whole thing was ridiculous, he admitted with genuine laugh that punctured evening's surreal tension. Would have said we could have bought a small hospital with that money. Shared moment of perspective amid extraordinary circumstance. Recognition of larger context beyond auction house drama. Around them, Manhattan continued its evening rhythm, indifferent to individual narratives unfolding on its crowded sidewalks. Smart woman, Downey agreed, signal to driver indicating conclusion approaching. Final handshake exchanged not between celebrity and fan, but partners in unexpected alliance against materialism that had briefly united them. Looking forward to seeing what you build, Michael Thompson. Full name spoken with deliberate recognition, acknowledgement of identity beyond circumstantial encounter. As Downey's vehicle merged into Manhattan traffic, Michael remained momentarily still, processing evening's impossible pivot. Ringbox weighed almost nothing in his pocket, physical lightness contrasting emotional significance. Several onlookers approached seeking details, social media already constructing narratives around witnessed events. Michael answered briefly, authenticity trumping performance as grandmother would have expected. Later that night, in humble student apartment, Michael placed ring carefully beside grandmother's photograph. Engineering textbooks and prototype sketches surrounded them, context that transformed auction house luxury into practical purpose. On laptop screen, email draft to Downey's foundation took shape, prosthetic designs attached that could transform children's lives across economic barriers. Grandmother's ring caught desk lamplight, modest sapphire containing immeasurable value invisible to collectors like Blackwood. You were right, Grandma, Michael whispered to photograph, fingers touching ring his grandfather had purchased on factory workers' wages decades before million-dollar auction drama. Some things really are beyond price. Tomorrow would bring practicalities, studies, and work toward meaningful innovation. Tonight, a loud moment of recognition that sometimes, against all probability, values beyond profit occasionally prevailed, not through miracle, but through people who recognized what truly mattered. As Michael returned to engineering calculations, Grandmother's inscription caught light beneath his desk lamp. Love endures all things. Simple truth that had withstood test of Christie's auction floor and emerged against impossible odds, victorious. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.